Welcome to our HRM Plus webinar for the Employee Record System about creating a new year in the employee records. We're going to walk you through the steps for that today. I did email out this documentation. I should say, by the way, this is Sherry Evans doing your webinar today, so happy December. You should have this documentation on creating a new year. But I also wanted to show you that we have gone into each site here very recently. And on your site, if you go to Management Resources, it's going to look like this. Now, this is in the Employee Records portal. You have something similar if you have our other systems, the volunteer application, the job application, or professional development, where our general resources are here. So if you're wondering, how do I create a new year? How do I do this? How do I do that? They are here. The webinars that we've done, we went ahead and put in the resource area for you. So you have those on the left under your resources. And then on the right, you have a link to all of these recorded training webinars that we have done. So if you click this link, it will take you to our page where we maintain all the links for the webinars. So you can see how I clicked here, and it opens up in a new tab. And then you can look at system or the employee records or job, each of the different systems. So if I click on ERM, Employee Records Training Webinars, it's going to give me a list of each webinar, and you can scroll down the page and you'll see the ones that are here, and you can click on it to listen to the recording of the webinar. And we do send you those links after the webinar, but guess what? You have them 24/7 available to you. So we have those if you're training new staff or you're just wanting to review yourself exactly how to deal with things. Like here's what we covered last week, the utility tools. So after this is done today, we'll be putting the one up for your work areas as well. So again, that's just under your Management Resources menu, where you'll have all your resources and as well a link to all the recorded webinars. And as we update our how-to documents, we will be adding them here. We have about 3 more, I think, to finish up the balance of the employee records, including ones that will describe all of the tables that are used in employee records. So those will be added. Our goal is to get those done in January. So there we go. So I'm just going to stop and unmute and see if you have any questions about accessing these resources or your resource page. Any questions? Okay, again, we're glad to have you on board today. So we're going to go ahead, and I'll go ahead and mute everybody, and we're going to walk through this documentation on creating a new year. And many of you have done this in the old EDRM system, and it's quite similar in this system. And the first thing that you're going to see is that you have to set up your tables for the new year. So we're going to be taking a look today at the key tables. There are 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. The work area table where you set up your new year, the calendar tables, and the salary schedule table. And I'll just be walking down through this document I sent you as we go, or you can get your document from your resource page. Okay, I'm going to hop on over here to our little demo site. We're going to go over here to the lookup tables. And the first table you want to set up, if you haven't done so yet, is your work area. So it's that time of the year where you're coming to the end of the year, and then you're saying, oh, yeah, can maybe get started on next year. Many of you start your budget process in January and February, and you want to set up your 2019-20 work area and get things going, and you can do that. But there's just these 3 tables that need to be set up. So the first one is the work area. So if you haven't set up your 2019-20 work area, first just kind of note which ones you've used. Like in my model, I've used 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I did set up 2019. So when I got ready to do that, I noticed that I had used 4, so my next one is 5. There's no limit to it. So you just click the button, and then you'll pick the next work area. In my case, I selected that's 5, and you fill out the data on the screen, and you save it. It's that simple. So again, the Word document shows you how to do that, how to click the Add New Work Area. You'll get a blank screen. It describes exactly to put it into each field. So in the work area, you will select the next available number that's not in use, as I just showed you. And then you'll enter your year, which is a 4-digit YYYY. So for 2019-20, you would just enter the first 4 digits, 2019. And then you can have a little description. Now keep in mind that many of you use this description field to merge into your contract documents. So you may want it to say 2019-20, 2019-2020, 2019-20 school year. That description is simply a description, but where you use that to merge into your contract documents, it will use that text. And then the starting date and ending date really don't affect anything in the work area records. It's just a denotation of your annual budget year. So usually we'll see 9/1 to 8/31 in here. The basic, the residual, and the try are all custom fields for Vancouver's professional development, so you don't have to worry about those. But you will enter an experience cutoff and a credit cutoff, and these go with the Washington State 275 rules, which for those purposes are still in place and exactly the same, have not changed. So the experience cutoff is August 31st. In this case, it will be 2019. In other words, for 2019-20, you're going to have the system only count experience that was completed through August 31 of 2019 for their 19-20 placement. And with credits, that date is 10/1. So those are the state cutoff year information. So you'll just set that up and click Save. Pretty simple table to do. So I'll just unmute real quick and see if there are any questions on that table. Any questions on the work area table? When you save, you'll see your new work area in there, and it's like ready to go.
Just a quick question, Sherry. I noticed that you had, I think, 2 2015 school year calendar or work areas. No, 14.
No,
15, 16.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't. I just have one out of order.
Okay.
It's hard telling in my little demo database.
Okay.
I can see that one was 14 and one was 15. So no,
and,
you just have that one for each year.
And you cannot have 2 work areas for the same year?
Correct. You shouldn't need them, but because of the way the calendars work, etc.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to go to then, any other questions? That's a good one. Okay. We're going to go ahead and go into the employee table. So these are tables that affect just the employee record system, whereas shared tables affect all systems. And we're going to look at the calendar table next. This is always the one that we go, So for all the calendars that you used last year, or this current school year, 2018-19, you need to set those up for 2019-20. So you can filter right here to 2018, and then you could do a screenshot of this, or you could do write them down, or whatever you'd like to do. So you know, in my system, I need to create 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Well, it says right here, 8. Tells me how many 8. I know I work with a district that has upward of 30 calendars because they allow their secretaries, for example, have a lot of different calendars. 191, 192, 193, 195, 198. So it really depends on your calendars, but that's what you'll set up. So one thing about this I just wanted to show you, because I use it as a shortcut a lot, is I'm not into like copying this down or try to figure this out. So when you want to add a new calendar, there's 2 kind of shortcut things you could do. You could be logged into the system on another monitor, so that you have, again, you could have on that other monitor a different browser. So you'd be opening one, for example, in Firefox or Edge, and you'd be opening another one in Google. And you can do that. So what you can do is on your other monitor, you can have this open, and then you can say, oh, well, I need to create the Admin 260 calendar. What does it look like? So then you can have this opened up on your system, so that from year to year, you're using the same descriptors, and you can kind of see, oh, this was the Admin 260, and this is your little description, how many work days and holidays, etc. It's kind of helpful to have that information. So that's one way that you can do that. You can also just snippet it if you want to do that. But another thing that I like to do, kind of to use as a work checklist, because I tend to get interrupted when I'm doing something. Oh, that doesn't happen to us, does it? I will go up here to database info. This is where we can get access to all the tables. I've shown you this before. And I'm going to go type in just even the first part of the word calendar, and it'll filter to tables that include that. Any table that has ICT in front of it is the calendar. Any table that has ICT in front of it, that's the setup table. So ICT calendar is the setup table for the calendar. ICT calendar dates is the setup table for the actual dates in the calendar. So what I tend to do is I'll come in here to ICT calendar, and I've got this in the documentation for you as well. Oh, that was real good. I don't know why that happened. Let me clear this and do that again. Well, sometimes when that happens, you just go back to home. Okay, let's try that one more time. Database information. Okay, calendar. There we go. So that's going to open that table up. And this is all the calendars. Now, I only want to know what calendars did I have last year. So I'm going to filter for 2018, and I'm going to export this to Excel. Now I've got myself a nice little list, and I can use that Excel file to track my work as I'm going along to make sure I got those done. But there's another really important reason why I like to use this Excel file, and it has to do with the code that is used for the calendar. This calendar code, that field has to be the same from one year to the next. So for example, in my demo site here, we have a teacher calendar set up with the code HEA, Hometown Education Association. So you all have yours, SEA, YEA, EVA, whatever those are. Whatever that code is for a year, it has to be the same code every single year. The reason is, in the position table, we're telling your positions, this is the calendar code that position uses, so you can't change it. If your position is teacher and its calendar code is HEA, or whatever that is, it's going to need to be that every single year. So now I've got this Excel file that shows me the year, the calendar code, the title I use, the description, the start and stop dates, my default hours. I can swing that on over here so that when I go to add a new calendar, so I'm going to go here to look up tables. You can do the same thing with salary schedules and other stuff if you need to, but when you're ready to do a new calendar, and I've already done a couple here, I've done 2 of them, I marked them off, my CL and my 260 and my HEA. So let's say I'm ready to do the CL 220 next. So now I can go ahead and add a new calendar. But as I go to put this in, you'll get a blank screen. And now I've got my Excel file over there. So my school year is 2019. My code I used last year was CL220. My title was, and guess what I can do? I can just copy from my Excel file so I don't have to do that again. So I'll just copy that, and then I'll go over here and copy that. Okay, and then I need to put in a start date. So normally these are a full year, and then they're off in the summer. And then you'll put in your default hours that they work, and what's the default hours per day. The default hours per day is just what comes up when you enter a work area record. It's not critical that, you can overwrite it, so it's just a default is all it is. And then you can save this. Now, when you save this, if you get a little error, sometimes that will happen. It just hasn't calculated the total yet or set it. Sometimes you'll get a little error. Don't worry about it. You've saved it. Now, if you return and you go, okay, I created that calendar. Oh, not quite. We've got to tell that calendar which days are holidays, which days are non-work days, etc. So here's the 220 that I created. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and click it to edit the record. And when I come back in, I can go check, and that will compute how many days and hours I currently have. I haven't marked any days, so it's a 260-day calendar for next year. Now I can go to dates, and I can start marking off. And based on what I know from my last year's calendar, yellow is going to be the holiday and blue the non-work, and I'm looking for the 220. So usually I will go through with the yellow on and just mark my holidays. So whatever the paid holidays are for that calendar, you go through and mark those. I'll do this one calendar. Many of you have done the calendar. So you just go click, click, click. And you would click the rest of your holidays. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and do the rest of that. You know how to do that. Click on the little blue for non-work days. So over the winter break, if these are the non-work, non-paid days, then you use the blue. You can use pink to designate other paid days. It's rarely used, but it can be used. So once you're done doing all of that, and I won't, just for time in the webinar, I'm not going to finish that. You would finish yours up. So remember, you have to do this annually. And then just go ahead and either click check or save again, and it will show you how many days. Now, obviously, this is not done because I want it to be 220 days, and I'm just down to 254 with 3 holidays. But that's as easy as it is to add a calendar. Now, one other thing that you can do is once you have a calendar created, so I have a calendar for my admin 260, and I have an admin 240. Well, I could, when I go to create another one, like if I create the 220, I can copy one and create another one. So once I have the 220 created, I can copy it, and it will create the next one. So that, like if all of your holidays, et cetera, are marked, then you don't have to mark them again. I could have just copied this 260 to create the 220. So in your instructions, what you have is, I'm just going to review that with you again on the tables, how to get to the database information to get your calendar if you want to get an Excel file and use it as a little checklist. And then it'll show you how to filter for that and export out. Then you click Add a New Calendar to get your new calendar, and you'll get a blank screen like I was showing you. And basically, if you've either snipped it or you have some way to look at how you set it up the previous year, do the same thing, except you've got to change the dates. And here in the documentation tells you exactly what to put into each field. Again, that code has to be exactly the same from one year to the next. That's the most important thing. And then here's a sample of completed data, as I was just showing you. You return and you'll see your new calendar, and then you'll click on the date screen. So I've got the dates here. You click on that, and then it'll bring up the screen where you use the little color buttons and color up all your dates, and then close it when you're done. And then you can come back and you can click check or save. Now there's also a feature here called description. So let me show you that. So when I'm in a calendar like this classified 220, this is optional. But because you can print your calendar out here with that PDF, you may want to go into descriptions, and you can put a description. The system just says, oh, you marked September 3rd as a holiday. Well, you can click the pencil, and where it says holiday, you can update that to Labor Day if you'd wish. It's completely up to you. Even on a non-work, if you want to update these and put in winter break, you can do that. So that's completely up to you, however you want to describe those. So those are optional, but it's nice when you go to print your calendar, then you see not just the word holiday or non-work, but you get a better designation of what that is. So when you're done, you, of course, can print your calendars by just clicking the little PDF button out here, and that'll print your calendar for you. Again, just a little note, anytime you do reports, watch for a pop-up blocker if it's the first time or you got a new computer or something like that, first-time user. You'll just have to clear them one time. And my little PDF report is working down here. Here it comes. And up comes my calendar in that familiar format that was we created many years ago. And that's all there is to doing calendars. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute and see if anybody has questions on creating calendars, which unfortunately you have to do for every calendar for every year because the computer does not know what Labor Day is from one year to the next. It just doesn't have any idea how to do that. Salary schedule is going to be a lot easier, but for the calendar you'll have to create each one. Any questions about creating calendars? Okay, well, I hope my explanation was good. We're going to go on to salary schedules, the third table you have to create to do your new year. Now, these are very easy. So what you do is you're going to filter for your 2018. So you get that filtered. Again, if you want to, you can go out to the database and do it. But the salary schedule doesn't rely on dates or anything. So you can just copy one to create the next one. Now, I'm going to actually filter for 2019 because I can't remember. No, I hadn't made any yet. Okay. So here's my 2018 principal calendar. All I got to do is copy it. And it'll create. Now, what's going to happen when I copy is that it's going to show up with a year of 0. But what I do is I'll come down here and just go copy, 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 copy. I just copy them all. So just get them all done, okay? And so it's pretty easy just to go down and hit copy, 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 copy. Now what's going to happen is that you're going to end up with this year of 0 because it doesn't know exactly when you copied what year do you want to put in for those. So once you've gone down and go copy, 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 these will be your new with the year being 0. So all I did was click on the year as a header to sort those. So now I'm going to get my principal's salary schedule up. And it's budget time. I have no idea what the salary schedule is for next year because we haven't finished bargaining or whatever. So I'm going to just put in 2019 as my 4-digit beginning year. And I can put in a note, no change as of 12, what is today? 12/12, set up for budget. And that's fine if you want to do that. Or if you did make a change, you can make changes to the steps. So however you want to do that. And then that will change the year. So I'm like, didn't I not save that to 2019? That was interesting. Yak it away here. So you'll just go through and do each one of those and make sure that you put the correct year in for that particular one. Boom, and you've got it. That's all there is to it, except for doing the steps. So now you have created your salary schedule, but what about the steps? Are you increasing them by 3%? Are you increasing them by a nickel across the board? What are you doing with the steps? So this takes a little bit of information about how salary schedules work. So I'm going to come over here to the documentation and just review that real quickly with you. So on the salary schedule table, we first went in and I showed you how to just hit the copy, copy, copy. And then you can click on the year and it will filter to 0. And then you can edit it and put in your 2019 year so that you have that 2019 and save it. If you want to put in a little note, you can. But now before you go about changing the steps, you need to know this little information in our system about salary schedule types. So when you set up a salary schedule, and they were all initially set up working with you, I'll just show you. This one is a type RTCTA. What does that mean? And this one's RNCTCNF. Well, what does that mean? What are these things? Well, in our documentation, we have that for you. So think of an Excel file. So this is RT is row text, CT is column text. So if you're thinking of an Excel file, so I'll just pull one over, got that Excel file. This would be your row, and this would be your column. So what's going to go into that grid? So, for example, a lot of classified positions, salary schedules, are RTCTA because there's something like level A, step 1, and then just an amount. So if you're setting it up like that, you're just saying, oh, I want to use a text field, I want to use a text field, and a simple amount. Now, some people will go level 1, step 1. So in that case, they will use the row number. So you can use row number, column number. It's just that this causes you to put numbers only in. This allows you, and why I like to kind of use the RTCT, you can use text, which could be a number or text, either way. And those are the two most common, actually. RTCTA is the very most common one that we have of all. Now, anytime you come into a schedule that has an F in it, that means it's factored. So a factor salary schedule, which I love, means you have a base. So let's just say we have a base on a salary schedule of $1,000. Say it's a stipend schedule. And the factor for that base would be 1.00. And then you have a stipend that is $2,000. Well, the factor for that would simply be 2.00, where the system will look at the factor and multiply it times the base to figure out automatically what the step is, and you never have to update them. I love factor salary schedules. I usually create factor schedules for all of my schedules, even though most of you don't, like on a even on a classified schedule, because if you look mathematically at a salary schedule from one step to the next, the factor is nothing more than what is the difference between those two. So I'm just going to do a little lesson on that right now. So I'm just going to say I have a salary schedule like that. Just say that this is my salary schedule. Okay, and these are my different steps. What you do to figure out the factor is you just say, what is this divided by that number, right? That's the factor. It's going to come out to 1. So then this one is going to be, what's this one divided by that number? That's the factor. The factor is going to be 1.055. And then this one would be this one. Of course, you can use an Excel to do that, divided by that base. Whatever the number is divided by the base becomes the factor. So that's simple math. Now, what the system does is when you have a base of $1,000, I'm going to copy this down here for a minute, it says, oh, what's the salary amount? So you would say equals the base times the factor, okay, period. Well, what's this one? It's the base, it's the factor, times the base, or the base times the factor, either way. So that's how it knows. By this factor, the system will multiply it times the base, and it gets whatever that salary amount is. So you can just say equals this times that, or you can actually do a formula that holds that constant. Now, what happens is when I change the base, talking and typing, okay, when I change the base in the next year from 1,000 to 1,060, it automatically changes the amounts. That's what's cool about a factored schedule. So any schedule can be turned into a factored schedule, but if you're using a factored schedule, it's just a difference in how you deal with the steps on the schedule. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing to you. So what I'm going to do is come back to the system and show you that if you were working on a teacher salary schedule, it is factored, and it's factored because we created a factor based on the row number, which is the number of which is years, column text, which is the degree, and then column number, which is the number of credits. And all of you have a teacher salary schedule set up like that. So now, from year to year, what happens with that calendar is, I'll just put in 2019 and filter back here again. I can take my HEA calendar and I can say, oh, all I have to do is increase the base. So once I increase this base from that number to the new number and save it, then I just hit this calculator here, and it will recalculate all the steps on that salary schedule. So I do not have to go in and say, oh, this step is this much for this, and this step is this step, this step. But if you're using a simple salary schedule, like a row text column amount, like this principal one, and you're going to increase the schedule by 3%, you're going to have to go in and guess what? Edit every one of these steps to put in the new amount. This is why I like factored salary schedules. So you'll have to go in and update your amount, save, update your amount, save, update your amount, save. So lastly, I'm going to show you one little trick with this salary schedule setup that will help you, and then come back and review this again with you. I'm going to go to that database information. Now, before I go there, I'm going to note here that this principal salary schedule is number 114. So you'll need to know the number of that schedule. I'm going to go out here to database info, and I'm going to search up for the salary schedule table. So I'm just going to type in salary, any table that has the word salary. I need an ICT table. Now, this is the salary schedule table, but this is the detail that has all the steps in it. So I'm going to open this salary schedule detail. If you have a salary schedule that has 5 steps on it, 8 steps on it, do it yourself. But if you have a salary schedule, so I'll put in 114 because that's my principal salary schedule, and it's got all of these steps on it, you'd have to click the pencil to edit every single one of those. Export this to Excel, and your friendly little support team is going to help you. So once you export this out to Excel, and I will go over this with you one more time, you can update your figures in the Excel, email it to our support team, and ask us to load it for you, and we can do that. So what you can do is come in here, and you'll see this is my schedule 114, and you can sort it if you need to, but you can see your steps. So you can come in here and update your amounts and your hourly rates, whatever you might have in your schedule. Just update them in Excel, send them to us, and we can load that in the background table for you. Again, if you just have 5 or 6 steps, do it yourself. But we're willing to help you out with doing that rather than you having to click the pencil and edit every single step. So let me go back through the salary schedule again one time. So we're going to go into the lookup tables. We've done work areas, we've done calendars, we've got to do salary schedules. Once you do these 3, the rest of it's easy breezy. So salary schedules, the good news is that for the next year, I can just go copy, 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 boom. And at this time, you may not know what your salary schedules are. Fine, you don't need to do any other changes. But if and when you do get a salary schedule increase, you will need to edit that. If it's not a factored schedule, so there's no F in it, then once you create it for 2019, is you're going to click the little plus here to show the details. So this is all the steps. And you're going to go through, click the pencil, and edit each step and put the new amount in, okay? You go, really? Yeah. Now, again, if you just have 8 or 9, do them yourself. But if you have a whole bunch like this one, and you probably have 5 or 6 more of them like that, just export those out to Excel, and we will do that for you. Now, to export it out to Excel, you need to know the ID number, and then you go up to System Manager, Database Information, get your ICT Salary Schedule Detailed Table, filter for the number that you want to clean up to increase the amounts on. Sometimes if you can't see the fields, you can go like this and make them wider. Salary Schedule ID, filter in my sample for 114, export that out to Excel, update it, send it to us, and we can upload that for you. Okay, I'm going to look at my document. One more thing before I go to documentation. If it's a factored schedule, just in summary, makes it easy. All you have to do on the factor schedule is change the base amount and recalculate it. That's it. So let me get up that teacher salary schedule. So if I know what the base is going to be for 2019-20, clicked on the wrong one. Okay, HEA, where'd you go? 2019, right there. If you know what the base is going to be for next year, or at the point where you do know, you just simply change that base amount and click Save. When you return, then you can hit the calculator, and it will recalculate all those steps for you. One last thing. When you have a salary schedule that's annual pay, like teachers are an annual pay, or the administrators are an annual pay, your admin 260 typically are annual pay, you may want the system to calculate an hourly rate for you. Well, to do that, it has to know, what do I divide this pay by, how many hours? So what you do is you select the calendar. So in this case, this is the teachers. So I select the HEA calendar so that when I hit the calculator, if a calendar is attached to this, it will calculate the hourly rate as well. So that was a mouthful all about the salary schedule setup, which I said this is the toughest part of the whole thing, but let me go through the rest of the documentation and we'll open up for questions. So little notation here about the different types of salary schedules and how they are used and why you see that code. It really affects, if you have a factor, you only change the base. Otherwise, you have to change all the steps on the schedule. So I've just shown you an amount where you have samples of those salary schedules. So here's a factor schedule with the base. Here's a sample of a factor. Got that all in there for you. And then when you do a salary schedule, that's why I always review, I didn't mention these 4 fields at the bottom. These are optional, but if you have a salary schedule that's an annual amount and you want to show the hourly rate, just go ahead and check that. If you want to round a dollar, you want to check that. So is it an annual salary rounded to dollar, or does it include dollars and cents? So some districts' coaching salary schedules are rounded to dollar, and sometimes they're cents. So you click that or not. I mentioned the calendar. Now the last thing I want to mention is this P code, show the P code. So when you put in the information for a step on the salary schedule, the system will create a P code, or what's that placement code. So for example, if my salary schedule was level 1, step 1, and an amount, the P code would be 1-1. Or if it was level A, step 1, it's going to be A-1. So that's the P codes. And then round the dollar and calendar, we talked about that. Okay, and then you just simply hit the calculator to recalculate the amounts, or you'll have to click the little plus to get the steps and go in and edit these steps. Now, I did make a note in the last webinar about this next P code field, which I think you're going to really find nice for next year. We did not have this in the old ERM. So what you have is a P code. The next P code means this. If I'm on this step this year, what step do I go to next year? So in this scenario, A1 goes to A2, and A2 goes to A3. But A3 will stay on A3 because that's the top of the schedule. B1 goes to B2. B2 stays at B2 because that's the top of the schedule. And C, there's only one step, so it'll stay at that. We now have a utility tool that called the P code utility. I went over that last week with the utility tools that will find everybody in 1 year that's on their P code and automatically move them up to the next P code level for the next year. So you use that a lot for your non-calculated positions. Teachers' placement is figured automatically by degrees and credits, but all your classified, your administrators, your coaches, this will be a really nice tool so you don't have to manually go in. But that means that you need to have your next P codes filled out in your schedule table. Okay, so that is all about the salary schedule table. So let's stop and see if I overwhelmed you too much. Questions about salary schedule table? I think I have you all, you're all unmuted. Okay, any questions? You're just sitting there going, oh my gosh. No, it really is pretty easy once you get through it. So guess what? We've done all the hard work for creating a new year. The next parts of it are pretty easy to do. So I'm going to go on in the documentation now to making a decision about posting experience. So all your setup work is done. Whew. And that's really what it takes is the calendars. That's a big one. Okay, you'll need to make a decision when to post experience, because what it basically does is it takes the data in your work area where you've said they were a custodian or they were a teacher or whatever they were in the work area, and it posts that information into their permanent experience record. And for teachers, then that, when you recalculate everything, would move them up a step. And for classified, when you do your P code thing, it will move them up that step. So you'll need to make a decision. Do you want your experience included right now when you're setting up budget or not? Some districts do, some districts don't. The other determination about posting experience typically has to do with teacher contracts. So many of you will get your budget set up, and then shortly after that, you will go in and do your teacher contracts. A lot of districts like to have the teacher contracts out like right before spring break or right when they get back from spring break. When do you want to have that experience included? If you want your 2018-19 experience to be included and counted for placement when you issue the teacher's contract, then you want to post the experience before you do contracts. Otherwise, you would say, no, I'm going to wait and post my experience afterwards. It doesn't matter when you do it. It's just a matter of what you see in your work area records. So if somebody's on step 12 and the experience would move them to step 13, do you want that step 13 in your experience in your work area record for next year or not? So completely up to you when you do it. So that's your decision point, and certainly we'd be glad to talk to any of you, especially those that are new, about making that decision. But once you make the decision about posting experience, I'm going to show you this utility, which we looked at last week, that's really easy. You're going to do it once for your calculated, which are your teachers that are based on a calculated schedule, degrees, credits, and then once for your non-calculated. 1, 2, step through these steps and you're done. It's really easy. You can also delete experience here. Now, I do want to make a note of this. Once you post the experience, which comes from the work area, you want to make sure your work area data is pretty accurate. So if it comes to maybe the 1st of March or you're in February and you decide, yeah, I want to include that experience in my contracts and my budget for next year, then you want to think to yourself, is my work area data correct? Oh, no, I've got 5 people here that have changes in a new hire. Well, get those in before you do your post. The only difference is this. Once you post experience, so let's go into management search here, it's going to be in their work area record. So 2 things can happen. 1, you would get a new hire that comes in after you have posted experience for the year. 2, you could have somebody take leave without pay, which affects how many days they were actually paid, or they could resign. Things that affect or alter how they're paid, which goes into their experience record. Once you have posted experience, you'll have to manually update the experience record itself. So the posting of experience, it's just simply going to take the data that's in the work area for that year that you're posting, so for this 2018-19 year, and it's going to post it into the experience record. So if Mary ends up doing, in 2018 I posted, and then she ends up doing leave without pay, or maybe we increase her FTE or do something to her, I'm going to need to manually come over here and alter that record once I have posted it. Okay, so we're going to return to search and come on over here to our utility tool to post experience. It is pretty simple, and I've got it spelled out for you in the documentation. So usually only because it's on the left, I start with calculated. Now you want to make sure that you have all your records in your work area right, and you're going to come down here to experience. And again, you can decide when you want to post that experience. So you go calculated, post from what area. I want to post my 2018 experience. Now you've got these questions. For teachers, you will always say use the work FTE. The if days does not apply to non-calculated. So that's it. It's on calculated, pick your work area, use work FTE, select your records. It's going to come up with the list of the records of what people work. If you're seeing a bunch of errors, stop and don't post it. Otherwise, you can post those records. That's as simple as it is. And then the same thing with classified, except for one difference. So when you go into the classified or the non-calculated, you're going to come into experience and non-calculated. And now you're going to make a decision about the work area and if you want to use this if days. In the classified experience, there's a field called CUME STEP that some of you use to track the number of years that they have been in your district, kind of a service record. So if my CUME STEP on a record, I'm a secretary, and my CUME STEP is 4, and you want the CUME STEP to be incremented by 1, it will increment by 1. How many days do I have to work to increment that? A lot of you are 90. In other words, if I work half the year or more, we're going to give you a year of service credit. Sometimes you use that for service pins, you use it for seniority, not quite sure what you use it for, but the if days just goes with that cum step. So you'll say the number of days, use 1, select your records, they'll come up, and then you post them. That's it. Post the records. You're done. So posting experience is pretty simple. Any questions about that? I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Okay, questions on posting experience? Okay, and I'll just bring that documentation over here that shows you the buttons that you can select, how you select the records, and they come up, and then you can post it. And then at some point in time, you will use the recalc tool to recalculate all their placement. It depends on everything that you're doing. If you're just posting experience and nothing else, you can go ahead and recalculate. But normally, you'll go ahead and roll your work area, do all your stuff, and then do one mass recalculate that sets up the 2019-20 amounts. So now we're going to talk about the thing we really probably came here for, was copying or rolling or creating a new work year. So that's the work area tool. So we're going to be in the utility still on the tab called work area. You have to have your salary schedules and calendars and work area set up. Again, this is a pretty simple tool. You're going to click the type, calculated or not. And so copy details, you're going to copy from one to another. We'll talk in a minute about these other two options you have here. And I want to copy 2018, and I want to create 2019. And yes, it's a new year. Now, when I click that, what the system says is, oh, look at the 2018 records. Look at their position. But when you create the work area, use the 2019 calendars and salary schedules. That little one checkbox is what does that. And then you can decide, do you want to transfer the comments that you had from last year in their work area record or not. Some of you do and some of you don't. It's that simple. Then you select the work area records. Again, I'm doing the calculated here. And you'll have your set of records, and you should see 1920 here. That is a key. You can click on that start date. If you're seeing 1819 dates, you've missed setting up a calendar. Stop. Just close this out and go back, okay? We'll see that in a minute in the classified because I didn't set up all the calendars. So here are my cert people. Of course, you'll have pages and pages. And when you're done, you just post the record. That's as simple as it is to create your new year. Now we're going to recalculate everybody in a minute, but to actually roll the work area for certs or calculated from this year to that year, new year, comments yes or no, select the work area records, post. That's all there is to it. Now for the classified or the non-calculated, let's take a look at that. Oh, I'll go back to home. Okay, management utilities. And in this case, we're going to pick non-calculated. I'm going to recalc totals when I get down to work areas. Oh, that screen didn't look right. Okay, non-calculated. And again, we're going to pick the year, 2018, copy to 2019, new year. If I want to transfer my comments or not, select the work area records. Make sure you stop here and see, oh, I got problems. I've got 18 dates in here. That means I did not set up the calendar for that year. I got to stop. That's the key indicator that, because if I create these right now, it's going to create records for 1920 with 1819 dates. So just stop right there. In this case, I've got 3 pages of records, so I can click to view all, or I can just go one page at a time and look at them. But you can quickly see. So you can click on Start Date and see, oh, yeah, I didn't do these calendars for food service and stuff. I guess I better get those done, huh? So it's a good idea, not a good idea, it's like really important that you click on your start date or look and make sure that all your dates are 1920 dates. But otherwise, you just post the records and you're done. And that's as simple as it is for doing the process of, get this thing down here, I can get hold of it, doing the process for copying the work areas. So we're going to talk about recalculating in a minute, but I'm going to unmute and see if you have any questions about this work area. When I do that, I'll just do a summary of why I've got it unmuted. So you just click the type, copy the detail, whether or not new year, comments. So there's a sample for you, and then you're going to select your records. Watch for that start date to make sure you don't have 1819. and then that's it. So when you're done, you're just going to go over and you're going to do that for cert and classified or calculated, non-calculated, and then you're going to recalc totals. So any questions on this before we go into the recalc totals? Okay, I'm going to move over to recalc totals. This one, again, we went over last week, and for those of you that were on the webinar with the utilities, in this case, you're going to say, what do I want to recalculate? So usually because you have so many records, you'll do your teachers and your cert specialists separate. But you will simply pick what you want to do, who it's for, the year. So once I have done 2019-20 and created it, I would pick that year, and then you're going to go through and run these one at a time. So you just kind of have to think of what it says here, but it's in the notes for you, obviously. Update certificated credits. If I recalculate this, it's going to go in and count any credits that would be applicable for 19-20. So if you had entered credits in the system after 10/1/18 that were not counting for the 18-19 year, now when you calculate 19-20, they will calculate. So you just click that and count. You can also do a get count to see how many records you're going to do, and then you hit recalculate. When you're done with that, stay right on the screen. And then sorry about that, I had another call come in here. Stay right on the screen there, and you will be able to click the next one. Now, other credits is classified only, so you wouldn't do that for your classroom teachers. You'd go to your QMFTE and recalculate that, especially if you've posted experience. But even if you haven't, I tend to recalculate it just to set the 19-20 year. And then you're going to do placement, because teachers have calculated placement, so you'll do that, calculate. And then you're going to do update their salary, calculate. And then the P code is not for teachers. So for teachers, you're going to do credits, QMFTE, placement, and salary. That's all in your documentation. Now, when you go to do the classified, do it a little bit different. In the classified, what you're going to do is you're going to pick classified here, non-calculated here, non-calculated here, classified here. You'll pick your 19-20. And then if you happen to keep track of credits for classified and you want those calculated, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, for classified, you're just going to do salary and P code, because they don't have an automated placement that is computed on their FTE. So you just click salary and P code. Now, salary just updates their salary to the 2019-20 schedules. P code, if you do this, is the one that moves them up a step. So that's where it would look at that P code, A1, and move it to the next P code, A2. And it will just automatically move the entire classified group to their next P code. So that's as simple as that is for the recalc. And when you're done with that process, basically your work area is set up. Now, I want to go over a little thing with you about recalculating totals when you recalculate a little tool. I'd like to kind of finish up with that. And it involves using the export information. So as you can see, we did our work area salary schedule calendar. We decided to post experience or not, and then we came into the work areas and we copied and created next year, and then we're down to recalc totals. Before you actually start that recalculate total, what you may want to do is, no matter when you're doing the recalculate, so it's completely up to you, but you can go look into your export information and grab your work area data. Now, some of you have custom budget reports here. Some of you just use the salary info. Some of you use the employee work area, or if you're tracking assignments and account codes, you'll use this one. Whatever it is, you can punch that out and filter it for what it is now before you make any changes. So let me show you on the Word document an example. So this is just for you to consider, obviously, especially like say you're going to move people up a P code or something like that, different or placement. You want to know who changed. So you can go out and get your export information and then cull it down to just the fields you want. So this is a sample with a teacher where I just took the export information, and in my Excel I kept three fields: user ID, display name, placement. So that was the data before I recalculated. now I'm going to go recalculate. I'm going to get that same data, and I'm going to copy just those 3 fields, user ID, display name, and placement. And then I'm going to add a field to my Excel file called match. And I use this formula called equals exact. So in this case, equals exact. Does C3, which is the placement before, match F3, which is the placement after? And in this case, my formula returned a false for these 3 that I highlighted in yellow. That means their placement changed. Indeed, this was MA90 step 8, now it's MA90 step 9. Or this is BA step 0, now it's BA 15. But that match will be able to tell you exactly who changed. And that's a neat little trick to use anytime that you're changing data. Say you did the classified and you wanted to check who moved up a step and who did not. This would be great. You could have all your classified employees there. From the document, you could also keep like position and location if you wanted to, and you could have their step and their salary. And then you would match the P code, is the step basically, the P code to the P code, and wherever it's false, they will have moved up a step and you'll know that. So that's a handy-dandy little tool for doing that. And then again, I just in the documentation show you which buttons to select to go through each of the different recalcs. And a little note about that P code, again, how it moves it up, and you need to have that set up in the salary schedule. And that's it. So I'm going to stop now and see if you have any questions about the whole process. We've gone through a lot today. Want to make sure that you're comfortable so that you can start working on your budget and work area stuff for next school year, 1920. And, of course, at any time you can contact us to do a webinar directly with you, or if you need assistance in setting something up, we're more than happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm leaving it open for questions, or you can exit the webinar, and I probably might not talk to some of you before the holiday time comes and goes, so happiest of holidays to all of you. We appreciate working with you. Questions that you might have?
Hi, Sherry. It's Kathy. On the experience posting for classified, so we have the classified that just worked the 180 days, and we have the classified that worked 260 or other calendars. When we choose 90 for a cutoff, do we have to go back and into individual records to change that? If, say, it was a 260 employee and they only worked 90 days, they wouldn't move up the salary schedule depending on
you'd have to do that for them.
Okay.
You'd have to do it. And hopefully you have very few, but that's where that export information really is handy for you, because you can spot those right away and know who they are.
Okay.
Yes.
That's kind of what I thought.
Hume step. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's a one-for-all deal. It's not by salary schedule type, so pretty rare that you get those, but they do happen, so good question.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You betcha. Other questions that you have? Well, again, we just love having you on board with our webinars, and we'll send you the recording of the webinar when we have it available to you. And don't forget about those resource pages. All your documentation is available in your management resources area, and or contact support anytime. Thank you very much for attending. We sure appreciate it.